Until 1960, Overtown in Miami was known as the Harlem of the South. The largest black community in southern Florida, it pulsed with businesses, theaters, hotels, and a strong culture that attracted black people from across the hemisphere. They were the workforce that built the city around them, and many catered to the white communities nearby. Then, in the shape of a law and a highway, Overtown's demise was written into history. For Overtown and black communities across the eastern United States, the construction of I-95 spelled the end of an era.
Overtown was set up in 1896 when the city was founded. Blacks were relegated to the northwest quadrant of the new city of Miami, 1896. So blacks arriving into Miami after that date had to live in Overtown.
It was home. It was the community with the churches, the hotels, the theaters, the parks.
Most of the people in there were Bahamian American descent, and they kind of looked out for each other.
Overtown at that time, back in my formative years, was a very vibrant community. The thing that remains most vivid in my mind is that because of segregation, the community was self-dependent. What I mean by that is there were pharmacies owned by black pharmacists. There were black doctors who lived in the neighborhood. There were black lawyers who lived in the neighborhood. There were 4 theaters within this community.
And I guess the most exciting thing to me was that I could read Ebony magazine at home, and then after school, you would see some of the same stars that were in the magazines walking down the street. Nat King Cole, Louis Armstrong, Ella Fitzgerald, Aretha Franklin. I guess the most exciting one was Cassius Clay.
During that time, they were not allowed to live in the hotels on Miami Beach, although they performed there. And when they would complete their performances there, they would come over to Overtown, which was known at that time as the Colored Town, Central Negro District.
The seeds of Overtown's fate were sown during World War II.
The federal government saw the need to have highways that they could move troops on in case of war. That meant much, much larger and far-reaching highways. The war's over, and now there's an appetite for people to move around the country. So even more impetus to build these highways beyond the military priorities. So it was a time when the military need evolved into a social need.
With the passage by President Dwight D. Eisenhower and Congress of the Highway Bill in 1956, white urban planners across states and communities began drawing routes for the new interstate highway system.
And if you trace it, in almost 100% of the cases, I-95 goes directly through the heart of the inner cities, which always have been close to in terms of proximity to downtown. So that was valuable land.
When the federal government, the state and the county had to make a decision about bringing I-95 into downtown Miami, there were 2 choices. One was to bring the interstate down the old railroad track. Had they taken that option, they would have displaced far fewer people. The white business community didn't want that. The Chamber of Commerce did not want that. The other choice was to bring the interstate into downtown, down Northwest 7th Avenue. And that choice was preferred by the white politicians and white business community. So over the objections of blacks, the decision was made to bring that interstate down Northwest 7th Avenue, the result of which was to wipe out most of the population of Overtown. I think Overtown went from over 40,000 people to maybe 10 or 12,000 people in 10 years.
Well, it destroyed the community. The businesses, the churches, the sense of community that was there was lost because people were forced to relocate. And quite frankly, that sense of community has never come back.
And not only that, a lot of people didn't understand that they had a right to contest those awards. You know, you're coming up in a segregated society. They felt they had no rights other than just to take whatever was offered. In terms of the economic loss, it was very devastating. Basically, you ripped out the heart of the community.
When I-95 and 395 displaced them, those persons who were without their own personal transportation were certainly at a disadvantage. And although there was the famous Bus 21, I think, that ran from Liberty City to Overtown to Miami Beach, it was inconvenient, of course. The bus stops are far apart. It was very, very difficult to get where you needed to go.
When people were forced from their homes and businesses, they generally migrated in either Liberty City, Opelika, Carroll City, which is now Miami Gardens. But the problem with that is The transportation didn't go with it. Transportation, in my opinion, is the most important factor in people being able to get good and decent jobs. Because if you cannot get to where the jobs are located, then those jobs are excluded from you.
Access to transportation is one of the backbones of a community.
I think without solving our transportation problems in Miami-Dade County, none of these communities will ever be as vibrant as they could be.
You can do it in a way where it's not giving something away, it's actually working to make the community stronger and working to make the people more productive and actually feel like they got a stake, in this country.
But you can imagine taking people who have been residing in a community for all of their adult life, for a lot of them, and saying, okay, you have to leave your home. And why do you have to leave your home? Because the federal government decided to run a road straight through your community. I believe that bringing I-95 through Overtown was the greatest injustice perpetrated on black people in Miami-Dade County during my lifetime.
How sad it was to destroy the community for some while enhancing the lives of others. And the descendants continue to suffer because of what was done.
Today's federal government is committed to the reconnection of communities unjustly destroyed by highways. It now believes new infrastructure should connect displaced residents to economic prosperity. That is what Miami-Dade County hopes to do by expanding its rapid transit system and building the North Corridor. We don't have to live bound by the injustices of the past.